They are sometimes trusted, often admired, and on occasions popular. In an age where brands are trying to come across as authentic, social media influencers, call them bloggers if you like, have become the perfect partners. How much power do they have? This is Roundtable with me, David Foster. Word of mouth, what people say about you, it is an effective way to spread a message, and in the digital age, telling your followers about a product can even be a career. Social media influencers fill our feeds with advice, entertainment, instructions and endorsements, but are they all as credible as they'd like us to believe?
In today's content-saturated world, brands no longer care about what you know or who you are, but who knows you. Or more importantly, who follows you.
Whoa.
Social media influencers are the new power, but are they as unfiltered and authentic as they appear? And are consumers becoming resistant to social media advertising tactics? Social media influencers, they're an advertiser's dream. With legions of adoring, engaged followers, their endorsements of products and services can earn them millions. Some social networking stars can earn $3,000 to more than $30,000 per post.
Hello everybody, it is time for another monthly favourite.
YouTube star Zoella has over 7 million subscribers, earning around $400,000 a year from her fashion and beauty advice. She's now also a best-selling novelist and has her own range of homewares and cosmetics.
It's PewDiePie again, the multi-millionaire that keeps complaining about stuff.
PewDiePie is possibly the most famous vlogger with 54 million subscribers. His YouTube channel earns him around $15 million a year. But these platforms can be less transparent than they seem. It's become difficult for consumers to identify an honest review from a paid-for marketing plug. New legal guidelines are now in force in the United States after a precedent-setting case. 2 YouTube stars were charged for failing to disclose that they owned an online gambling service they'd endorsed. The US Federal Trade Commission said influencers need to unambiguously disclose their connections to brands and companies they're promoting, and ensure their sponsorship disclosure is hard to miss. With so much money at stake, there may be pressure for more regulation. For now, social media influencers can operate relatively freely, controlling their online empires, often from their bedrooms, some cultivating their followers for profits, others finding themselves so-called Insta-famous overnight.
Joining me at the round table, we have Andrea Cheong, a luxury lifestyle blogger, a name she says somebody else gave her, rather than she ascribing it to herself, who says many people are attracted to the glamour of the job without realising how tough it's going to be. Next to her, Maisha Khanom, who's a fashion blogger who says people live vicariously through the lives portrayed by the people they follow on social media. To my left, Sasha Langeveldt, blogger and YouTuber, at least aspiring blogger. Sasha will come to that in just a moment, who believes in using social media for social good. And next to her, William Barylo, a sociology researcher who thinks that influencers, as we've called them, have a one-sided relationship with their followers, and big brands take advantage of it, full advantage. William, we'll come to you in just a moment, because you're like the cynical eye on some of this. But let's go to you two first of all, because you're active bloggers. Andrea, legions of followers earning millions every year. It's not like that, is it?
You mean bloggers earning millions? No, it's not. It's a really niche amount of people that actually do make even 6 figures. And actually, blogging is not their main income. A lot of it is affiliate links, advertising on their blog, so display adverts, then obviously appearances and books as well.
But people come to you, big companies come to you. Dior, you mentioned before we went on air, and they say, write something nice about us. You earn money from that, don't you?
It depends, because if it's a brand as huge as Dior, sometimes it's just product. But
So you get free perfume?
sadly, no, that was actually for the charity that they did. So they did approach me directly and asked me for content, whereas other people who used the hashtag just did it because they wanted to be part of the movement.
Maisha, let me ask you, a lot of your pictures on Instagram, probably most of them, are of fashion.
Yes.
Yeah? And you're earning money out of this?
I wouldn't say every single post I'm earning money out of, but then there are particular posts, quite recently as well, where I have been able to sort of generate money through promotions and adverts for
Not just by getting stuff for free, they pay you to do this?
Sometimes, yes, not all the time.
So you're effectively their marketing executive?
I wouldn't say I'm a marketing executive, but I would say I'm a little part of the puzzle. So I do think that they reach out to many, many people, and I wouldn't say that I'm just exclusive to them or they're just exclusive to me.
Okay, so it's about influence, whether
Yes.
these companies want you to influence your followers or you as a writer want to influence the people who are actually following you for social good. Now, Sasha, I was fascinated by the fact that you said you were willing to become a role model.
Yes.
What on earth do you mean by that?
So what I mean by that is, I know some people would see it as kind of arrogant or something, but what I consider it to be is that if I were to have this platform where people do see me, then I could do more good and perhaps change the world. Because I know that it is very difficult to change the world as it is, but if you're not seen, it's going to be extremely harder.
William, these people are being used as tools, aren't they, by marketing executives?
No, I think reality is much more complex. And the thing is that, first of all, social media is quite empowering because it enables people who have only an internet connection to reach millions and contribute to the knowledge of humanity as a whole. The thing is, things become a bit more complicated when it gets combined with systems such as neoliberalism, and when the race for numbers overrides ethics, and these phenomena we see might be serving as proxies for governments and corporations. Of course, this is
Which
much
is
more
effectively
complex.
what we were talking about, wasn't it? You know, getting paid to promote products, being an influencer, helping them to market their products.
Indeed, currently the social media thing mainly works through the commoditization of data and products. So whether it is selling people's personal data or enable people to recommend or advertise products to others.
So how would a big company use Andrea?
I don't think we can talk about using, because I believe Andrea has free will. And
But not all of our followers do, because they are being pushed.
I don't actually, so I accept the word influencer, but I would not describe myself as one, because when you talk about influence, a lot of it actually has to do with sales, and I don't sell anything. I hate discount codes. I'm always so explicit about how much I hate discount codes, but if I'm on a paid campaign, and that's part of, you know...
You mean this is where they would give you a cut price something for saying how great it was? Is that what it is?
It's more like if you tell your followers to use your Instagram name, they can get 10% off. I don't do that. I try not to do that as much as possible. I only accept discount codes and influence when I'm on a big campaign with a trusted brand.
So are you a blogger or a blagger?
I talk a lot, but I'm a blogger.
Okay, blagging in my parlance, my old journalistic parlance, means getting things for free, getting things...
Absolutely not.
No?
I turn down a lot of brands, and especially if they only DM me or they don't use my real name in the email, I ignore them.
What's the fun of it, Maisha?
I think it's quite nice to help smaller companies, because for me personally, a lot of small companies reach out to me, and I do think that helping local smaller businesses is a lot more important than helping bigger businesses, because they've already generated their money through loads of means, and I think smaller businesses, they kind of deserve that recognition. And I don't think that there's anything wrong with using discount codes and stuff if you actually enjoy the product, if you truly believe in what you're being paid or sent things. If you're being sent these things, then there's nothing wrong with kind of pushing for it if you actually enjoy it.
If you enjoy it is
Yeah.
one thing, but if you believe in the fact that they're selling it, you're working for them to some extent.
But I'm not selling it, I'm just
Encouraging.
encouraging
But
it.
that's naive, isn't it? You're acting as a vehicle for their sales.
But then if I was to buy something myself, and a lot of the products that are on my Instagram, I have bought a lot of my own things with my own money, and I push for those. And I wouldn't necessarily say that I'm kind of like their tool, because I'm pushing for it regardless of whether I
and you
get paid.
genuinely believe in all of the things.
Yeah, everything that I post, I believe that it's nice, and I genuinely think that because it looks good, other people should buy it.
Have a think about this, you two, if you don't mind, because I'm going to ask you to give Sasha some advice, because she's pretty new at this sort of thing. So in the meantime, I'm going to ask William, you talk about something called thin trust and thick trust. Now, thin trust is perhaps what the people who read blogs think of their government, of authorities, etc., etc. They don't really have a great bond. But thick trust is what you think that people have with the bloggers they really believe in. And how does that work?
No, again, the thick
The
trust...
answer's no.
Thick trust is a phenomenon which happens with organic social interactions. So this is something you develop with people with face-to-face conversations, whether it's with a bunch of friends or a family. The thing we observe, whether it's in the corporate sector or governments, is a phenomenon of a thin trust. Is when people do not have not met the organizations personally and trust brands or companies because of their image, because they're everywhere and everyone knows about them. So it's much more complex.
Yeah, what the note I have here is thick trust, you said, is where followers, in other words, people who read these or look at the pictures, regard their chosen influencer in the same category of trust as deep relationships, such as family and close friends. Does that happen?
So what happens with the internet is that social media personalities develop what is called parasocial interactions, which means that, for example, one good example of this is Kim Kardashian. When she takes selfies of her in the bathroom or at some events, or like of her personal life, her intimate settings, and ask her followers for opinions. So this is the kind of thing we can only have like between close friends, allow them into our intimacy and be like.
Parasocial, you mean almost
parasocial.
Fake social, don't you?
It's, I would say it's illusory, because with the illusion that we are part of Kim Kardashian's intimacy with these pictures, in fact it is not. This is just a technique which is used for develop this kind of link between her and the followers. This is why it's parasocial. It's social, but not exactly.
You see the dangers in this?
I do see the dangers in this, because it's kind of like, I don't think you can form like a complete trust with someone that's just asking for your opinion, because in a sense people are still trying to sell you something. Like I've seen on social media, a lot of the Kardashians do push for buying new brands, and just because they ask for your opinion, I don't see that it's trustworthy.
They ask for your opinion so that you might say, yes, I love that, so that somebody who's looking at this can think, well, that's a good vehicle in which to promote it.
Yeah.
I hope you're still thinking about how to best advise Sasha. Let's take the dangers, Andrea, if we may, address this to somebody who's new at the game.
Basically what you guys were talking about, the dangers of fake trust.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think it really depends how you go into social media. I think if you stumble across it and, you know, you happen to be popular because of your content, there's no real... I mean, yes, okay, technically there is something like you described, but it's not intentional on the influencer's part, because I can tell you that I get like 60 to 100 comments for my photos, and I know over 60% of their names personally. So, you know, for me, it's like they almost are my friends. I can't say that they are like my real life friends. I'm going to make that distinction, but I know their names. I know what's going on. I know if they're married or they have kids or if they have animals and what their pets' names are. So I think it depends how you go into it and what perspective. If it's for intentional popularity or for money, then obviously it can be a little bit different, and this whole fake trust thing does become an issue.
Okay, well, we'll go into the financial side of it in just a moment, but it's a funny old world, isn't it, where you can have almost friends?
I think it's quite nice in terms of being able to connect with different people across the globe. I actually really, really enjoy it. I think, again, it depends on the kind of person you are and your morals and your ethics, and I do believe that when you do have a larger audience and the larger it gets, trust it can sometimes be tainted when you are kind of faced with pressures from companies to kind of push, not necessarily sales, but to push a product which you might not 100% believe in. So I think there's a big risk in that in terms of trust.
I don't know. I agree with you where you can connect to like so many different people across the world. Like if I were to be a social influencer, I would to gain satisfaction from that. But I see kind of like just having a broad idea of someone's life doesn't necessarily mean like you know who they are or like what struggles they've been through. So I do kind of see like a link to kind of fakeness, if that understands.
But you also said, you know, you want to use social media to inspire people to do great things.
That's correct.
Well, that isn't arrogant, but perhaps it's rather naive.
You could say it's naive, but then again, possibility of like changing the world is deemed impossible by people who believe change can't happen. And in order for change to happen, people kind of need to talk about it more. Take, for example, we have loads of social media influencers that have encouraged change in this year's general election. People like, say, Jamie and Stormzy have reached out to young people to encourage them to register to vote and to vote in general. And we see, for example, Canterbury has actually been conservative for possibly like 100 years and now is Labour due to student votes. So I can see that you can inspire and change people and perhaps change the world eventually through social media.
Do you reckon people live virtual lives through the people that they admire and follow? And
I wouldn't say it's virtual because it answers like concrete needs. Because one thing, what happens is we live in times which Zygmunt Bauman would call liquid modernity, meaning that we cannot hold anything.
Being who?
Sorry?
That person.
Zygmunt Bauman,
Yes,
the Polish philosopher.
Okay.
And so liquid modernity is this concept that we cannot hold anything in our hands, like permanent contracts, friendships, like housing, anything, nothing is guaranteed anymore. And even through this liquid modernity, what happens is an increase of the individualism in society. Like bonds of friendships become weaker. It's harder to become committed, like for example, through marriage. This is because people are generally in need of like this thick trust, like organic interactions. And what happens is that the internet has become a kind of a proxy for helping people having a sense of these things we need as humans, but it's all superficial.
Let's give liquid modernity another name, if you like. And you may tell me I'm wrong in this, but it is the fact that we live in a world that doesn't seem real in so many different ways. And aren't you adding to that?
Actually, if you're thinking about what's real and what's not, as there are like 700 million Instagram users now, what's real and what's online is almost becoming more and more seamless. And you see loads of different innovations bringing this together, from, you know, omni-channel retail, you know, to...
Help me with that.
When online and offline retail is merged, so via shoppable images or using big data to drive personal recommendations, so that in-store purchases are almost fused with online. So Instagram is doing that with shoppable images. And so if you think about other sectors such as travel, over 60% of millennials actually refer to social media and not just Instagram for like reference on where to go next. So if you're thinking about like how much is real and how much is virtual, actually they're becoming more and more seamless.
If you sit and think, Maisha, about the dangers here, the difficulties, the problems, or do you just get on and do it because it's fun?
I honestly do it because I think it's a great hobby to have when you're a student like myself. I was a student when I had my account for many years, but
now you're making money out of it. It changes slightly, doesn't it?
It does a little bit, because you do have a bit more of a responsibility to make sure you're very as transparent as you can be. But I do think that in terms of being able to distinguish between reality and online worlds, I personally think that it's because social media, the phenomenon, has been going on for a very, very long time. I think people, because they know what social media is about, they know that people like myself do use social media as a means to generate
It's a
money.
funny old world, isn't it? You say it's been going on for such a very long time,
Yeah.
but there's a perspective to this, you know,
Yeah.
from where I sit, it's pretty new,
Yeah.
and some of it can be quite disturbing. And transparency, you mentioned transparency. Do you know of people out there who are using this for the wrong reasons?
Not that I can think of right now.
Anybody else?
But what do you mean by the wrong
Yeah,
reasons?
if it's personal, it's very difficult to say wrong.
Okay, then it's not a subjective view.
Yeah.
It's an objective view. William, I mean, people do use their blogs or in whatever way for nefarious reasons, don't they?
Well, I think, well, I've been interviewing some social media personalities, and all they do stem from good intentions. The thing is that there is a danger, like as in every perspective from life, to use the things in a critical manner, meaning that social media can be a double-edged sword. And for example, if we just focus on the fashion industry, the question is whether we are critical on the things that are going on in the fashion industry. For example, this fast fashion industry, which caused catastrophes like in the Rana Plaza in Bangladesh, or even like deforestation of the Amazon forest and these kind of things. So I believe it's all a matter of thinking critically, how are we using this tool? And is it for bringing chaos or bringing harmony? And but sometimes as Andrea said, the scene is very, very like blurry.
Yeah, I was just going to ask this one, just throw this one out generally, pick up whoever would like to. I mean, are you interested in what your followers say, or are you simply interested in what you say?
Definitely what my followers say. It's always a conversation. Even if you look at my feed now, if you look at all my comments, I reply to everybody unless they're creepy. You know, sometimes you get like very weird, inappropriate things. But like, I reply to everybody and we have a conversation.
It's very important, I think, to make sure you have positive interactions with your followers, because they are the people that bring you to where you are. So without my followers, I wouldn't be a social media influencer.
But is that in the sense of sort of you must always be polite to new people you meet, or is
I'm polite to everybody, but
you know, in the sense of sort of you've only got one chance to make a first impression.
yeah, and I think when you know that people, for me personally, I know that a lot of young girls look up to me and they message me a lot, and I know that because young girls do kind of see me as a role model. I don't really class myself as one, but because they see me as one.
But this is it.
Yeah.
It brings worries with it as well, doesn't it? Because if you suddenly think you've got to be a role model, and you're only all in your early 20s,
Yeah.
I mean, you're suddenly thinking, well, crikey, what responsibility is that?
I don't necessarily think it's I don't think it's bad though. I think it's quite good, because it kind of not necessarily keeps you in shape, but it does remind you to kind of, I guess, stay grounded.
All right, so you've all got a moral compass, and you're going to use this for the greater good.
That is the main goal, I guess. But I do agree that, you know, you kind of need to keep your interactions with your following base, because those are the people who brought you to where you are. But then it's also hard, because I agree that, like, I think that people are forced to become role models because they have this responsibility to see that they have people watching them all the time. And with that, you kind of need to accept that you are going to become this person that people are going to look up to.
It's changing the way that we interact. William, is it also changing the way that big companies think about marketing their products in general? Because traditional advertising is going to be knocked on the head by this, isn't it?
Well, of course, as I said earlier, the thing is with the commoditization of personal data, it is easier for companies to know the market. And the thing is, in terms of marketing, the question to ask is whether these companies can still like manage to do their, how can I call this? Because now it is obvious that like the big companies are those which establish the rules and establish what people will consume and what is suitable to be consumed. So I think when it comes to marketing from a grassroots perspective, it is perhaps possible to influence the bigger company to think about their audience, like for example the diversity in the marketing. Why the fashion industry holds to these Western beauty standards, which has to be like white, fair skin,
Which brings
slim,
us
and
sort of full circle, doesn't it? You are in effect being hoodwinked by big companies to say what they want you to say about them, but believing that it's what you want to say.
No, that's not true.
Yeah, I don't agree.
Because I think that you do see that often, but I'm going to be really critical and say you see that with poorer quality bloggers and influencers who do it, like I said, for the wrong reason. And that's a subjective thing, but in my eyes, the wrong reason is intentional popularity or money or free things. So with that in mind, no, I don't think people who take it in a professional manner are being cheated.
But the difficulty is, how do you know who's a good blogger and who's a bad blogger?
It's so easy. Aesthetics, content, how they engage with their audience, how much they post, consistency, everything.
No such thing as a good liar, then?
No, I don't really agree with that. I do think that just because you've got a large following and you interact with your followers, it doesn't necessarily translate to being a trustworthy person.
No, yeah, for sure.
So there are dangers out there. You've got
100% there are.
We'll do another programme on how to spot the fraud, shall we? But thank you very much indeed for coming on Roundtable. I shall be very interested to see, as we thank you, the audience, for watching, what everybody around this table is actually going to put on their personal blogs or their Instagram accounts about Roundtable. It will be worth reading. Thank you very much for watching. David Foster here from me and the team. See you next time. For now, bye-bye.